The meeting room was quiet except for the soft hum of air filters. Jake Morrison sat in his chair and looked around the table at the strange faces staring back at him. Some had scales, others had fur, and one looked like a giant bug with two. Many eyes, they were all aliens, and they were all nervous. Jake was the only human in the room. He wore his blue uniform with the Earth symbol on his chest. His brown hair was a bit messy, and he had stubble on his face because he forgot to shave that morning. The aliens thought this made him look dangerous. The leader of the aliens was named Vextel. He was 7 feet tall and looked like a praying mantis that someone had stretched out. His big compound eyes reflected the lights in the room as he moved his head from side to side. When he spoke, his voice came through a small box that changed his clicking sounds into words humans could understand. "Commander Morrison," Vextel said, his voice sounding like a computer. "We have read your proposal 3 times. We still have concerns about this mining operation." Jake leaned back in his chair. The metal creaked under his weight. Several aliens jumped at the sound. "What concerns?" he asked. A blue-scaled alien named Colonna spoke up. Her voice was softer than Vextel's. "The asteroid belt you want to mine is very large. There are many rocks floating in space there." "What if something goes wrong?" "We've done this before," Jake said. He pulled out a small device and pressed a button. Numbers and charts appeared in the air above the table. "Look at these reports. We mined the asteroid belt near Mars without any problems. We got tons of metal and rare elements. Everyone made money." An alien with purple tentacles for arms waved them nervously. "But Commander, space mining is dangerous. What if a big asteroid hits your ships? What if you accidentally blow something up? What if you damage the trade routes that pass through that area?" Jake looked at the alien with a confused expression. "Why would we blow anything up? We're just mining rocks." "But humans are known for being unpredictable," said another alien. This one had orange fur and looked like a cross between a cat and a bear. "Our records show that humans often do things that seem impossible. Sometimes good things happen, sometimes bad things happen. We cannot predict what you will do." Vextel nodded, which made his long neck bend in a way that looked uncomfortable. "Yes, the Galactic Council has been studying human behavior since you joined us 2 years ago. You are very different from other species. Most races think carefully before they act. They study problems for months or years. They make plans and backup plans and backup plans for their backup plans." "That sounds like a waste of time," Jake said. The room went quiet. A few aliens made sounds that the translator didn't convert to words, but Jake could tell they were shocked. Quilana leaned forward. Her blue scales caught the light as she moved. "Commander, do you understand what you are asking? You want to take huge machines into space and break apart asteroids. These asteroids have been floating in space for millions of years. They are part of a delicate balance. If you disturb them, they might crash into planets or space stations. Our computers have calculated the risks," Jake said. He pressed another button on his device. More numbers filled the air. "Look, we've run the math. The chances of anything bad happening are about 1 in 10 million. "But what if you are wrong?" asked a tall, thin alien with skin that looked like tree bark. "What if your calculations are missing something? What if there are factors you have not considered?" Jake shrugged his shoulders. This simple movement made several aliens flinch. They had learned that when humans shrugged, it usually meant they were about to do something that would give everyone else nightmares. "Then we'll figure it out as we go," Jake said. "That's what humans do. We adapt." Vextel's compound eyes seemed to focus on Jake with laser intensity. "Commander Morrison, I must ask you a direct question. Our species has survived for thousands of years by being careful. We think about every possible outcome before we make a decision. We consider every risk, every danger, every potential problem." "Okay," Jake said. "So I must know," Vextel continued, "have you truly considered all the things that could go wrong with this mining operation? Have you thought about equipment failures, space storms, asteroid collisions, damage to nearby planets, disruption of trade routes, and the possibility of discovering something dangerous in the asteroid belt?" Jake thought about this for exactly 2 seconds. Then he smiled. It was the kind of smile that made babies laugh and made alien diplomats reach for their emergency buttons. Sure, I've thought about it, Jake said. But honestly, what's the worst that could happen? The silence that followed was so complete that Jake could hear his own heartbeat. Every alien in the room stopped moving. Even the air filters seemed to go quiet. Quilona's blue scales turned a pale green color. The orange furry alien's eyes went wide and his whiskers twitched. The alien with tentacles wrapped them around himself like he was trying to hide. Vextal's compound eyes all seemed to look in different directions at once. Did he just say what I think he said? Whispered the tree bark alien. He did, Vextal replied, his voice barely audible through the translator. Jake looked around the room with confusion. What? It's just a question. Just a question? Quillen's voice was higher than usual. Commander Morrison, that is not just a question. That is the most dangerous combination of words in the galaxy. I don't understand, Jake said. Vextal stood up slowly. His long, thin body unfolded like a telescope. Commander, in the 3,000 years of the Galactic Council, no species has ever asked that question during a diplomatic meeting. We have a saying in our culture, the being who asks what is the worst that could happen is the being who is. About to find out. That's a weird saying, Jake said. It is not weird, said the orange furry alien. It is wisdom. When someone asks that question, it means they have not thought about the consequences of their actions. It means they are about to do something that will surprise everyone, including themselves. Jake laughed. The sound made several aliens jump in their seats. Come on, guys. You're being dramatic. It's just mining. We dig up rocks, we process them, we sell them. Simple. Nothing is simple when humans are involved, Vextal said. Your species has a reputation, Commander Morrison. You are known throughout the galaxy as the beings who turn simple tasks into galaxy-changing events. That's not fair, Jake protested. We're not that unpredictable. Quilena pulled out her own device and pressed several buttons. A holographic display showed a list of events. Commander, in the 2 years since humans joined the Galactic Council, you have started 3 new trade routes, ended a war between 2 species, accidentally discovered a new type of energy, and somehow convinced the most violent race in the galaxy to become vegetarians. The Kraxan weren't violent, Jake said. They were just hungry. We introduced them to pizza. You see? Vextal said, his voice rising. This is exactly what we mean. You took a species that had been conquering planets for food and turned them into peaceful pizza lovers. No one else in the galaxy would have thought to do that. Pizza is pretty good, Jake admitted. The room fell silent again. Every alien was staring at Jake with a mixture of fear and fascination. They had all heard stories about humans, but seeing one in person was different. Humans seemed so casual about everything, so relaxed about the unknown. Finally, Vextal spoke again. Commander Morrison, we will approve your mining operation. Jake smiled. Great, I knew you'd see reason. We are not approving it because we think it is safe, Vextal said quickly. We are approving it because we are afraid of what you might do if we say no. That doesn't make sense, Jake said. With humans, very little makes sense, Quilona said. But somehow, things always work out, usually in ways that no one expected. The meeting ended with the aliens signing the papers as quickly as possible. As Jake left the room, he could hear them talking in worried voices behind him. Mark my words, Vextal said to the others. Before this mining operation is over, something impossible will happen. Good impossible or bad impossible? Asked the orange furry alien. With humans, Vextal replied, it is always both. 3 months later, the mining operation at Kepler 442 was going better than anyone had expected. The asteroid belt was full of valuable metals and rare elements. The human mining teams were working faster than the aliens thought possible. Lisa Barnes was the chief engineer of the operation. She was a short woman with red hair that she kept tied back in a ponytail. Her hands were always dirty from working on machines, and she had a habit of drinking coffee all day long. The aliens found this strange because the coffee was so hot it should have burned her mouth. Lisa stood in the control room of Mining Platform 7, looking at screens that showed the progress of the operation. Numbers scrolled past showing how much metal they had collected each day. The numbers were good. Very good. Hey, Lisa, called Pete Sullivan from across the room. Pete was a young technician with messy black hair and glasses that were always sliding down his nose. He was looking at a computer screen with a confused expression. What's up? Lisa asked, walking over with her coffee mug in her hand. We've got some weird readings from the core sample in Section 12, Pete said, pointing at his screen. Lisa looked at the display. The screen showed a three-dimensional image of a rock sample they had drilled from one of the asteroids. The image was rotating slowly, showing different angles of the sample. Define weird, Lisa said, taking a sip of her coffee. Well, the computer says the molecular structure doesn't match anything in our databases, and I mean anything. It's like, this stuff is made of elements that don't exist. A four-legged alien named Trexum walked over to them. He was the representative from the Galactic Council who was supposed to watch the mining operation and make sure nothing dangerous happened. Trexum looked like a cross between a horse and a spider, with sensor stalks that stuck out from his head like antennae. Perhaps we should stop the mining operation until we can study this unknown material, Trexum said, his voice coming through a translator device attached to his neck. The Galactic Council has very strict rules about unknown substances. Lisa looked at the screen again. The sample was small, about the size of a marble. It was giving off a faint blue glow that pulsed like a heartbeat. How much of this stuff did we find? She asked Pete. The scanners show it spread throughout the asteroid in Section 12. Could be tons of it. Trexum's sensor stalks started waving frantically. Tons of unknown material? This is very dangerous. We must follow proper procedures. We need to collect samples, send them to the Galactic Science Institute, and wait for their analysis. This could take months. Or, Lisa said, we could just run it through the deep resonance scanner. That would tell us what it is in about 10 minutes. No, Trexum said, his forelegs dancing nervously. The deep resonance scanner sends powerful energy waves into the sample. If this unknown material is unstable, the energy could cause a reaction. What kind of reaction? Pete asked. We don't know. That's why it's dangerous. The material could explode. It could release toxic gases. It could start a chain reaction that spreads to other asteroids. It could even tear a hole in space itself. Lisa thought about this for exactly 3 seconds. Then she shrugged. Sounds like a lot of maybes. Pete, fire up the deep scanner. Wait. Trexum shouted, but Pete was already pressing buttons on his control panel. What if the resonance makes the material unstable? Trexum asked, his voice getting higher. What if it creates a cascade reaction? What if the entire asteroid belt becomes dangerous? What if we accidentally destroy a planet? Lisa looked at Trexum with the same expression she used when someone asked her to explain why machines worked. Trex, buddy, what's the worst that could happen? The words had barely left her mouth when Pete finished setting up the scanner. He pressed the final button, and the deep resonance scanner activated. The scanner was a large machine that looked like a metal donut with cables and blinking lights attached to it. When it turned on, it made a humming sound that got louder and louder. The unknown sample was placed in the center of the donut, where invisible energy waves could examine every atom. Trexum covered his eyes with his front legs. I cannot watch. Please tell me when the explosion is over. But there was no explosion. Instead, the scanner's computers started beeping excitedly. Data filled the screens faster than anyone could read it. The sample's blue glow got brighter and brighter until it lit up the entire room. Holy cow, Pete whispered, staring at his screen. Lisa, you need to see this. Lisa walked over and looked at the data. Her eyes got wide. Is this right? I ran the scan 3 times. It's right. What is it? Trexum asked, peeking through. His legs. It's not just a new element, Lisa said, her voice full of excitement. It's a stable, super heavy element. And look at these properties. It can store massive amounts of energy without breaking down. It can bend space around itself. It can make things move faster than light without using regular fuel. Pete nodded enthusiastically. This stuff could revolutionize space travel. Ships could cross the galaxy in days instead of months. We could explore parts of the universe we've never seen before. Trexham slowly uncovered his eyes. You mean ... it's not dangerous? Oh, it's probably dangerous, Lisa said cheerfully. Most revolutionary discoveries are, but it's also amazing. We just found the most valuable material in the galaxy. The news spread quickly through the mining operation. Within hours, every human worker knew about the discovery. Within a day, the Galactic Council knew about it. Within a week, the discovery was being talked about on every planet in known space. The aliens couldn't believe it. They had been sure that the humans were about to cause a disaster. Instead, the humans had stumbled onto the greatest scientific breakthrough in galactic history. Trexham sent a report to the Galactic Council that was 17 pages long. Most of it was technical data about the new element, which the humans had already named humanium as a joke. But the last paragraph was different. The humans once again asked their dangerous question, Trexham wrote. They ignored all safety protocols and proceeded with an action that could have resulted in catastrophic failure. Instead of disaster, they have discovered a material that will change the future of space travel forever. I am beginning to suspect that the humans do not ask what's the worst that could happen, because they don't care about danger. They ask it because they genuinely believe that the worst thing that could happen is that they miss out on something amazing. Back on Mining Platform 7, Lisa was studying the data from the deep resonance scan. The more she learned about humanium, the more excited she became. The element was stable, powerful, and apparently impossible according to every physics textbook in the galaxy. Pete, she called out, start mining section 12. I want to see how much of this stuff we can collect. What about safety protocols? Pete asked. What about them? Well, we're mining an unknown element that defies the laws of physics. Shouldn't we be careful? Lisa grinned. It was the same kind of grin that Jake Morrison had given the aliens during the meeting 3 months ago. Pete, we're humans. Being careful is not really our thing. Fair point, Pete said, and started up the mining equipment. As the massive mining machines began working on Section 12, extracting tons of the glowing blue humanium, Trexham watched from the observation deck. His sensor stalks were twitching with nervousness, but he was also fascinated. How do they do it? He asked himself. How do the humans always turn potential disasters into amazing discoveries? He didn't know the answer. None of the aliens did. But they were starting to understand that when humans asked, what's the worst that could happen? They weren't being careless. They were being optimistic. And in a galaxy full of species that had spent thousands of years avoiding risks, optimism was the most dangerous and most powerful force of all. The mining operation continued for another month. By the end of it, they had collected enough humanium to power a small fleet of starships. The Galactic Council was amazed, terrified, and grateful all at the same time. But the real test was yet to come. Because news of the humanium discovery had reached the ears of the Vorthan Empire, a species that had been looking for an excuse to start a war for decades, and the Vorthans were very interested in getting their hands on the most powerful substance in the galaxy. The discovery of humanium should have been good news for everyone in the galaxy. Instead, it caused the biggest crisis the Galactic Council had seen in hundreds of years. The problem started when the Vorthan Empire heard about the new element. The Vorthans were a warrior species that looked like giant lizards with too many teeth. They had been quiet for the past 50 years, but only because the other species in the galaxy had better weapons and technology. Now they saw a chance to change that. War Commander Krathel stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Destroyer of Worlds. He was 8 feet tall with green scales and yellow eyes that glowed in the dark. His mouth was full of sharp teeth that he liked to show when he smiled, which was usually when he was thinking about destroying something. How many ships do we have ready for battle? He asked his second-in-command. 12 dreadnoughts, 30 cruisers, and over 100 smaller ships, came the reply. All armed and ready to fight. Krathel smiled, showing all his teeth. Good, send them to the Kepler 442 system? I want that mining operation surrounded. What are our orders, sir? Simple. We take the humanium, all of it. If the humans and their alien friends want to keep it, they can try to stop us. The Vorthan fleet moved through space like a dark cloud. Their ships were painted black and covered with weapons. When they arrived at Kepler 442, they formed a circle around the asteroid belt where the humans were mining. On mining platform 7, alarms started going off. Lisa Barnes ran to the communications room where Pete Sullivan was staring at a screen full of red warning lights. What's happening? Lisa asked. We've got company, Pete said, pointing at the main display. 12 big ships just showed up, and they're not here to trade. Lisa looked at the screen. The Vorthan ships looked like floating fortresses. Each one was bigger than the mining platform and covered with enough weapons to destroy a small moon. Get me a line to the Galactic Council, Lisa said. They need to know about this. On the council station, emergency meetings were happening in every room. Aliens from dozens of species were running around, talking in worried voices and trying to figure out what to do. Jake Morrison had been promoted to admiral after the successful mining operation. He sat in the main council chamber, listening to the panicked voices of the alien representatives. The Vorthan fleet is too strong, said Defense Coordinator Wexim, a purple alien with tentacles instead of arms. Our nearest patrol ships are 3 light cruisers. They have 12 dreadnoughts. The math is simple. We cannot win a fight. We must negotiate, insisted diplomatic leader Yulten, an alien that looked like a walking tree. Perhaps we can offer them some of the humanium in exchange for peace. The Vorthans don't negotiate when they think they can win, said Quilona, her blue scales turning pale with worry. They will take everything and give us nothing. Jake listened to the aliens argue for 10 minutes before he spoke up. What about our mining platforms? What about them? Wexim asked, her tentacles writhing with stress. They're still at Kepler 442, right? With the humanium? Yes, but they're not warships. They're just industrial equipment. They have shields to protect against asteroids, but they can't fight military vessels. Jake nodded thoughtfully. How much refined humanium is loaded on the platforms right now? Trexham checked his datapad. Mining Platform 7 has about 50 tons of processed humanium ready for transport. The other platforms have smaller amounts. We still don't know everything about how humanium behaves under stress, right? That's correct, Trexham said. The humans have been studying it for only a few weeks. There are many properties we haven't tested yet. The room went quiet as the aliens realized what Jake was thinking. They had learned to recognize that look on human faces. It was the same expression humans got right before they did something that would give everyone else nightmares. Admiral Morrison, Quilena said carefully, please tell me you're not considering what I think you're considering. What am I considering? Jake asked innocently. Using the mining platforms as weapons against the Vorthan fleet. That's crazy, Wexham said, her tentacles going rigid with shock. Mining platforms aren't designed for combat. They're slow, barely armed, and completely vulnerable to military attacks. But they're also carrying the most valuable cargo in the galaxy, Jake pointed out. And according to your own scientists, we still don't fully understand what happens when humanium gets hit with energy weapons. Yulton S. wooden face somehow managed to look horrified. Admiral, you cannot be serious. The potential for disaster is enormous. What if the humanium explodes? What if it creates a black hole? What if it tears apart the fabric of space itself? Those are all maybes, Jake said. But here's what's definitely going to happen if we don't do something. The Vorthans are going to take the humanium, use it to build super weapons, and then conquer half the galaxy. There must be another way, Quilona pleaded. Some solution that doesn't involve deliberately crashing mining equipment into military warships. Jake thought about this for exactly 5 seconds, then he smiled. It was the smile that had become famous throughout the galaxy. The smile that made alien children hide behind their parents and made military commanders reach for their emergency evacuation buttons. Look, I'm not saying we should definitely ram the platforms into their ships, Jake said. I'm just saying we should consider all our options. This is not an option, Wexham said firmly. This is madness. Madness is doing the same thing everyone expects and hoping for different results, Jake replied. The Vorthans are expecting us to either surrender or send our patrol ships to fight them. They're not expecting a bunch of miners to turn their equipment into guided missiles. Because it's insane, Yultan said. Insane is just another word for creative problem solving, Jake said. Besides, think about it. The Vorthans want the Humanium so badly that they brought their entire war fleet to get it. What do you think they'll do when they see 50 tons of the stuff flying directly at their flagship? The aliens looked at each other with expressions that didn't need translation. They were thinking the same thing. The human was about to ask that question again. Admiral, Trexham said slowly, I must remind you that we know very little about Humanium's reaction to weapons fire. The energy output could be catastrophic. The explosion could destroy everything in the system, including nearby planets. Or it could do something completely different, Jake said. Something no one expects. Like what? I don't know. That's what makes it interesting. The room fell silent. Every alien representative was staring at Jake with a mixture of terror and fascination. They had all heard stories about human unpredictability, but seeing it in person was different. Finally, Quilona spoke in a very quiet voice. Admiral Morrison, what exactly are you proposing? I'm proposing we give Lisa Barnes and her team permission to use their best judgment, Jake said. They know their equipment better than anyone. If they think they can turn mining platforms into effective weapons, we should let them try. And if they're wrong, Wexham asked, what if this plan results in the destruction of the entire system? Jake's smile got wider. What's the worst that could happen? The silence that followed was so complete that the ventilation systems sounded like thunder. Several aliens made sounds that the translators couldn't convert to words, but everyone understood. The meaning. He said it again, Yultan whispered. He said it again, Trexham confirmed. Every time a human says those words, something impossible happens, Quilona said. Something that changes everything, usually for the better, Jake pointed out. Usually. Wexham agreed reluctantly. But the key word is usually. An hour later, Jake was on a secure communication channel with Lisa Barnes on Mining Platform 7. The Vorthan fleet was still surrounding the asteroid belt, waiting for the humans to surrender. So let me get this straight, Lisa said, her image flickering on the screen. You want us to fly our mining platforms directly at the biggest, most heavily armed warships in the galaxy? Only if you think it will work, Jake said. And you're asking us to do this because? Jake grinned. What's the worst that could happen? Lisa was quiet for a moment. Then she started laughing. You know what, Admiral? I've been working with this Humanium for weeks, and I still don't understand half of what it can do. Maybe it's time to find out? That's the spirit, Jake said, as the communication ended. The aliens in the council chamber realized something. That would change galactic politics forever. The most dangerous words in the universe weren't, what's the worst that could happen? The most dangerous words were hearing a human ask that question and then watching another human agree with them. The Battle of Kepler 442 would be talked about in military schools for hundreds of years. Most teachers would have trouble explaining how it was won because it didn't follow any known rules of space combat. War Commander Krathel stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the human mining platforms through his main viewing screen. The sight should have been funny. Industrial equipment trying to fight military warships was like watching farmers attack tanks with garden tools. Sir, his tactical officer said, the human platforms are moving toward us. Krathel looked at the display. 3 mining platforms were slowly flying toward his fleet. They were big, clumsy machines that looked like flying factories. They had thick armor to protect against asteroid impacts, but they were clearly not built for fighting. Are they trying to ram us? Krathel asked, showing his sharp teeth in what passed for a Vorthan laugh. It appears so, sir. They're moving in a direct line toward our ships. Pathetic. These humans must be more desperate than we thought. Open. Fire on the lead platform. Show them what happens when mining equipment tries to fight real warships. On mining platform 7, Lisa Barnes sat in the pilot's seat, watching the Vorthan ships get closer. The platform shook as enemy weapons hit their shields. Red warning lights flashed all around her. Shields holding at 60%, Pete Sullivan called out from his station. But they won't last long against this much firepower. Good thing we don't need them to last long, Lisa said, adjusting their flight path. How's our cargo looking? 50 tons of refined humanium, all secure in the cargo bay. The containment field is stable, Lisa nodded. The containment field was a bubble of energy that kept the humanium safe during transport. But she had made some modifications to it over the past few hours. Modifications that no alien engineer would have approved. Pete, remember what we talked about? When I give the signal, you shut down the containment field. Are you sure about this? Pete asked. We still don't know what happens when humanium gets exposed to weapons fire. Nope, Lisa said cheerfully. But we're about to find out. That's the fun part. The Vorthan weapons kept hitting their shields. Each blast made the platform shake like it was in an earthquake. Lisa could see the enemy flagship getting bigger and bigger on her screen. Lisa, Pete said, his voice worried, we're getting really close to that ship. If we hit it at this speed, we're going to make a very big hole. That's the idea, Lisa said. On the Vorthan flagship, Krathel was starting to get worried. The human platform wasn't slowing down or changing course. It was flying straight at his ship like a giant metal missile. Sir, if that platform hits us, it will cause significant damage, his tactical officer warned. Then destroy it before it reaches us, Krathel ordered. All weapons focus fire on the human platform. Every gun on the Vorthan flagship turned toward mining platform 7. Energy beams and explosive missiles filled the space between the two ships. The platform's shields flashed and sparked as they absorbed the massive attack. Shields down to 20%, Pete reported. We're not going to make it. Yes, we are, Lisa said. She pressed a red button on her control panel. Containment field offline. Let's see what happens when 50 tons of humanium meets a Vorthan dreadnought. The humanium in the cargo bay started to glow. At first, it was just a soft blue light, like the glow they had seen in the asteroid. But as the Vorthan weapons continued to hit the platform, the glow got brighter and brighter. Lisa, Pete said, staring at his instruments, the humanium is absorbing the energy from their weapons. It's storing it somehow. Good, Lisa said. Let's give it more energy to work with. She flew the platform directly into the path of the heaviest weapons fire. The Vorthan flagship was shooting everything it had at them. Energy beams, plasma cannons, and fusion missiles all hit the platform at the same time. But instead of destroying mining platform 7, all that energy was being absorbed by the humanium. The blue glow got so bright that it lit up the entire space around them like a small star. Energy levels are off the charts, Pete said, his voice filled with amazement. The humanium is storing enough power to run a city for a year. Perfect. Lisa said, Hold on, Pete, we're going in. Mining platform 7 slammed into the side of the Vorthan flagship. The impact was tremendous. It should have destroyed both ships. But something else happened instead. The moment the platform touched the enemy ship, all the energy stored in the humanium was released at once. But it wasn't an explosion. Instead, the energy created a field that covered the entire Vorthan ship. Krathel watched in horror as his flagship began to change. The metal hull started to glow with the same blue light as the humanium. The glow spread across the ship like water, covering every surface. What's happening to my ship? He demanded. Sir, his science officer said, his voice shaking, the humanium appears to be converting our hull into more humanium. At the molecular level. That's impossible, yes, sir? But it's happening anyway. Within 10 minutes, the most feared warship in the Vorthan fleet had been transformed into the galaxy's largest mining platform. The weapons were gone, replaced by drilling equipment. The armor was now made of glowing blue humanium. Even the ship's computer had been changed. and it kept trying to scan nearby asteroids for valuable minerals. Krathel and his crew were unharmed, but they were very confused. Their ship now looked like a giant space factory instead of a warship. "Sir," the communications officer called out, "we're receiving a message from the human platform." "Put it on screen," Krathel growled. Lisa Barnes appeared on the main display. She was smiling and holding a cup of coffee. Behind her, Pete was laughing and pointing at his instruments. "Hey there," Lisa said in a friendly voice. "How's your ship doing? Still feeling warlike?" Krathel looked around his transformed bridge. Where there used to be weapon controls, there were now mining scanners. Where there used to be tactical displays, there were now charts showing the best places to dig for minerals. "What did you do to my ship?" he asked. "We gave it a career change," Lisa said. "Your dreadnought is now a mining vessel. Congratulations, you're in the asteroid processing business." The other Vorthan ships watched in shock as their flagship floated helplessly in space, glowing blue and scanning rocks. The crews of those ships started to whisper among themselves. If the humans could do that to one ship, what could they do to an entire fleet? "This is Admiral Jake Morrison," came a voice over the communications system. "To all Vorthan vessels, you have two choices. You can surrender now and we'll help you retrofit your ships for peaceful mining operations. Or you can keep fighting and find out what other surprises we have for you." Krathel looked at his transformed ship, then at his remaining fleet, then back at the humans who had somehow turned his most powerful weapon into a space bulldozer. "What kind of species turns weapons into mining equipment?" he asked himself. "The kind that asks what's the worst that could happen and then finds out," Lisa said through the communications link. "So what's it going to be? Want to see what else our humanium can do?" The remaining Vorthan ships immediately began broadcasting surrender signals. None of them wanted to find out what other impossible things the humans could do with their mysterious blue element. Krathel slumped in his command chair, which had somehow been converted into a comfortable office chair with built-in cup holders. "I surrender," he said. "Great," Lisa said. "Welcome to the mining business. You're going to love it. The hours are flexible, the pay is good, and the work is way more fun than blowing things up." As the Battle of Kepler 442 ended, news of the human victory spread across the galaxy faster than light. Every species heard the same incredible story. The humans had defeated a major war fleet, not by destroying it, but by converting it into industrial equipment. Military commanders throughout the galaxy began revising their strategies. How do you fight an enemy that doesn't destroy your weapons, but instead turns them into something useful? How do you plan for tactics that make no sense but somehow work perfectly? The answer was simple. You don't fight humans at all. You make friends with them and hope. They never ask you what's the worst that could happen, because now everyone in the galaxy knew the answer to that question. The worst thing that could happen was that the humans would find a way to make it into the best thing that could happen, and there was no defense against that kind of optimism. 6 months had passed since the first meeting between humans and the Galactic Council. Zethka sat in his private quarters aboard the Harmony's edge, staring at the mountain of reports that covered his desk. Each document told the same impossible story. The humans had solved problems that had puzzled alien scientists for decades. They had fixed machines that were supposed to be unfixable. They had ended conflicts that had lasted for centuries. And they had done it all while asking that terrible question. The door chimed, and Zethka looked up to see Captain Jake Morrison walking into the room. Behind him came Dr. Ben Clark and Chief Engineer Lisa Hayes. The three humans looked relaxed and happy, as they always did. This worried Zethka more than anything else. "You wanted to see us," Morrison said, settling into a chair that was too small for his human frame. "Something about understanding our species better." Zethka's four arms moved nervously as he arranged the papers on his desk. "Yes, we need to discuss something important. Something that has been bothering the entire Galactic Council for months now." Dr. Clark leaned forward with interest. "What kind of problem? Is it medical, technical, political?" "It is about your species and the way you think," Zethka said. Carefully, We have been observing you for a long time. Much longer than you know. We have tried to make contact with humans before, but it never worked out well. Lisa raised an eyebrow. What do you mean it never worked out well? What happened? Zethka pulled up a holographic display showing various incidents from the past. 200 years ago, we tried to help your species develop faster space travel. We asked your scientists what was the worst that could happen if we shared our technology. They said you might accidentally blow up your solar system. Then they asked us to help them calculate the exact amount of energy that would require. Morrison grinned. Sounds like something we would do. Did they figure it out? They did more than figure it out, Zethka said with a shudder. They built a small test version to see if their calculations were correct. It worked perfectly. It also created a small black hole that took us 3 weeks to contain. Clark nodded thoughtfully. That does sound like a typical human response to a theoretical problem. We like to test our theories. 100 years ago, Zethka continued, we tried to help your military forces develop better defensive systems. We asked your generals what was the worst that could happen if we gave you advanced shield technology. They said you might accidentally create an unstoppable weapon. Then they asked if we could help them make sure it would be unstoppable. Lisa laughed. Did they actually build it? They built 12 different versions, Zethka said. Each one more dangerous than the last. Your military called it a research project. We called it a nightmare. But did the shields work? Morrison asked. They worked too well? Your engineers figured out how to turn defensive shields into offensive weapons. No other species in the galaxy has ever thought to do that? Dr. Clark made notes in his tablet. Interesting. So you are saying that humans have a different approach to problem solving than other species? Zethka's skin changed color, which was how his species showed stress. That is exactly what I am saying. Other species in the galaxy, when we ask them what is the worst that could happen, they think about disasters they want to avoid. You think about disasters you want to understand. Well, yes, Lisa said. How else are you supposed to prepare for problems if you do not understand them first? Most species prepare for problems by avoiding them entirely, Zethka explained. They build safe systems, they choose safe paths. They make safe decisions. Morrison scratched his head. That sounds pretty boring. Also, it sounds like it would not work very well when you run into problems you cannot avoid. That is the point, Zethka said. Most species never run into problems they cannot avoid. They are very careful to stay away from dangerous situations. But what happens when dangerous situations come to them? Clark asked. What do? When they have no choice but to face problems they cannot avoid? Zethka was quiet for a long moment. They usually do not survive, he said finally. The 3 humans looked at each other. Lisa spoke first. So you are saying that most alien species are not very good at handling emergencies? Correct. Most species plan very carefully to avoid emergencies. When emergencies happen anyway, they do not know how to respond. Morrison leaned back in his chair. That explains a lot. When we first met, you all seemed surprised that we were so calm about everything. You kept expecting us to be more worried about the risks. We were expecting you to be terrified, Zethka admitted. Most species are terrified when they first encounter us. They spend months calculating every possible danger. They build elaborate safety protocols. They move very slowly and carefully. And we just said hello and invited you to dinner, Clark said with a smile. You invited us to dinner and then asked if we wanted to see your weapons? Zethka corrected. No other species has ever voluntarily shown us their military capabilities during first contact, Lisa shrugged. We figured you probably already knew. About our weapons anyway. Most advanced species would have been watching us for a while before making contact. So why pretend they were secret? That is another thing that makes humans different, Zethka said. Most species try to hide their weaknesses during first contact. You showed us your weaknesses and then explained how you plan to overcome them because hiding weaknesses is stupid, Morrison said. If you hide your weaknesses, you cannot get help fixing them. If you show your weaknesses, maybe your new friends can help you get stronger. Zethka pulled up another holographic display. This one showed the current status of human integration into galactic society. In 6 months, your species has solved more problems than most species solve in decades. You have improved our technology, ended our conflicts, and created new solutions to old challenges. And you are worried about this? Clark asked. We are terrified, Zethka said honestly. Every time we ask you what is the worst that could happen, you give us ideas we never wanted to consider. Then you try to build those ideas to see if they work, Lisa grinned. But they usually do work. And even when they do not work the way we expected, we learn something useful from the failure. That is what terrifies us, Zethka said. You treat failure as a learning opportunity. Most species treat failure as something to be avoided at all costs. Morrison stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the stars. Let me ask you something, Zethka. How many species in the Galactic Council have survived major disasters? Not avoided them, but actually survived them after they happened. Very few, Zethka admitted. Most species that encounter major disasters do not survive them. And how many species have thrived after surviving major disasters? Only humans, Zethka said quietly. Clark closed his tablet and looked at the alien ambassador. So what you are really saying is that humans are the only species you know that get stronger from surviving bad situations. Yes, every other species either avoids bad situations or dies when they encounter them. Humans seem to grow stronger from bad situations. Lisa walked over to Zethka's desk and picked up one of the reports. Is this why you called us here? To tell us that we are different from other species? I called you here to ask you to stop being so different, Zethka said. The Galactic Council is considering a new policy. We want to ban the question, what is the worst that could happen from all future diplomatic meetings? The three humans looked at each other and started laughing. Morrison was the first to stop. You want to ban a question because you are afraid of our answers? Your answers lead to actions that make the entire galaxy nervous, Zethka explained. When we ask other species that question, they become more careful. When we ask humans that question, they become more creative. And creativity is bad? Clark asked. Creativity is dangerous when it leads to building things that should not exist, Zethka said. Like weapons that use black holes as ammunition, or shields that can cut through planets, or diplomatic solutions that make everyone else look stupid. Lisa sat on the edge of Zethka's desk. So what do you want us to do? Stop being creative? Stop solving problems? Stop asking questions? I want you to stop making the rest of us look incompetent, Zethka said with frustration. In 6 months, humans have become the most requested problem-solving species in the galaxy. Everyone wants human help with their difficult situations, Morrison grinned. And this is a problem because now everyone expects the same level of creative problem-solving from the rest of us, Zethka explained. And we do not have the same ability to think about disasters as opportunities. The three humans were quiet for a moment. Then Clark spoke up. What is the worst that could happen if we keep being ourselves? Zethka made a sound that might have been alien laughter or alien crying. You will probably end up running the entire galaxy within a few decades. And what is the worst that could happen if we try to be more like everyone else? Lisa asked. You will probably become as boring and scared as the rest of us, Zethka said. Morrison walked back to his chair. Well, when you put it that way, I think we will stick with being ourselves. I was afraid you would say that, Zethka said.